3 rules for investing with a partner. That's today's show. Let's dive into it. Hey everyone, I'm Natalie Morris.
And I'm Clayton Morris.
And you have joined into the Investing in Real Estate show with Clayton Morris. But you get Natalie Morris as a bonus.
That's a bonus. That's bonus coverage.
That's true. So today we're going to talk about investing with a partner, specifically investing in real estate. Now, obviously, if you are in a marriage, you are by default investing with a partner, right? But we want to talk about investing with people you are not married to.
All right. This is really common. And at our company, of course, we've renovated a lot of homes. We've worked with a lot of clients over the years who've bought properties together. They are friends. They met at a real estate group or whatever. They decided to become partners and buy real estate together. They build a portfolio of properties as partners, but they're not blood partners.
Right, exactly right. So, in fact, we've heard from people who listen to this show and then they, on their commute or they text their buddy, say, listen to this. They both are sort of ideologically aligned with this idea of passive income and they decide to do it together. That's awesome. We're so excited that you've decided to do that. But I don't need to tell you that investing with a partner can get sticky, right?
We've heard horror stories. And, something my dad told me when I was young, and it still sticks in my brain, but he said, don't ever borrow money from a friend because things end up going wrong, right?
Yeah.
Things can go wrong and you, not always, but you want to protect yourself. I have a good partner friend of mine. We do a lot of business together in a lot of different things. He told me about a number of years ago, he was really close with a friend from high school. They went into business together, and then he was left holding the bag when his friend decided to basically skip town.
I mean, we could spend this whole episode telling juicy stories of partnerships gone wrong, things that we've heard about and experienced ourselves, my family, inside this family we run. It's just rough. And a lot of times you think, oh, this is my best friend in the world. Nothing's ever going to go wrong. And something goes wrong. And you don't know, just because someone you like a lot, you don't know how that sort of mutual like is going to react when it's under the pressure of a vice, right?
Robert Kiyosaki likes to talk about pressure, and it shows itself, right? When you have something that is under pressure, there's only 2 things that can happen, right? It can expand and become stronger, right? You can become better. Like if a marriage, you go through something difficult, right? Right, honey? We go through something difficult.
Yes, yeah.
Then we become stronger as a result of it. Or it can explode. So there's only 2 things that can happen. It can't just stay the same, right?
Right. And so we've been involved in partnerships where we're like, oh, it's so unimaginable that something would go wrong there. And something inevitably, that didn't come out very easily.
Indubitably.
Something inevitably does. And maybe that's our stupid fault for saying those words. Like, what could go wrong, right?
Right.
So learn from us. And we want to give you 3 things to think about while you're thinking about doing this.
All right. So number 1 in this process is a percentage of ownership. So Step 1, how much of a percentage of ownership should we have?
Okay. So now for Clayton and I, we invest in LLCs. We know you wouldn't buy a property in your own name.
Right. You're smarter than that.
Please.
If you watch this show, you're smarter
So
than
let's
that.
pretend Clayton and I are not married, right? But because we are, when we buy a property, we create an operating agreement with an LLC. Let's call this LLC, I love this where I come up with dumb names for LLCs, Nail Polish LLC.
So I can tell you right now that I'm never going to have an LLC called Nail Polish LLC.
Right, but Clayton does actually name our LLCs after Star Wars characters, which is so embarrassing. So today I had to call and get the power turned on.
No.
I'm not going to say the name, but it was really embarrassing. It was like, she's like, okay, what's the business name? And I'm like,
Boba Fett
LLC. And that's not it, but it's of that caliber. And it's really embarrassing to talk to the power company like that.
Like,
okay,
what?
but we're talking about Nail Polish LLC, right?
Jabba.
So I should make you do that because you did that. Okay. So Clayton and I are co-owners of Nail Polish LLC 50%, right? But let's pretend we're not married. Me, as the savvy investor, I'm going to try to own 51% of Nail Polish LLC.
Okay, you want 51%.
You would like that, right? If your investor friend doesn't care and says, okay, but you'll make more decisions, maybe you take 51% of the profit, there's got to be sort of, I hate this phrase, but like an alpha dog.
Well,
right?
there's also has to be, you can like this phrase a little better, which is a silent partner. Now, very often you'll find people, I know a lot of investors that have friends that might be a surgeon, and they do not have any time for all of the phone
Right.
calls, turning on a water, bill at a, for a rental property. They're in surgery. They want to be a silent partner. So yes, they will be the 49% to your 51%. You're going to be the one that's going to call the city when the sidewalk needs
Right.
repaired, those types of things. So that can be beneficial to the person that just wants to make 1% less in the transaction.
Right. So if you're the person who's listened to these podcasts, you are interested in protecting your interest, at least try. Start with your negotiations at a 51% ownership in the LLC, because it may serve you in the event that something goes wrong. You need to make decisions that your partner is not down with. You want the power to do that. So really, really try.
So try to avoid a 50-50 partnership, right? So try to do that, because then if you could be at loggerheads, and then there could be no movement within your company for many, many years with a 50%. And
Right.
that's where it can get legally costly and the whole thing. So just don't do that. Step 2
Okay.
is to write yourself some outs.
Right. So ask your lawyer, or just do, we always advise that you work with the best when it comes to legal teams and people who specifically know operating agreements for real estate investors. So write yourself some outs. If something happens, you can get out by this, right? Either you can buy them out, they can buy you out. You want to make sure that you do that, right?
Well, yeah, you need to have a way that you can unbundle this somehow, because look, this is the difference between people who are savvy legally and people who aren't. It's that they have a plan in place. We hear all the time about the family that didn't have a plan in place. Their property ended up going to probate court. The city, makes a decision about your property. If you have estate planning in place with your legal team, you have a step-by-step process by which that property is handed down to your children.
Right.
Put it in writing, get it written out, and that way you won't have to deal with it later.
Just really try to think of worst case scenarios and put it down on paper so you don't have to carry it in your head. Now, one of the benefits of actually investing as a partnership in an LLC you both own is that then you're not liable for anything your dumbass partner does, right? If Clayton and Natalie invested in a partnership in a rental property, but we weren't in an LLC, and then Clayton went and held up a convenience store, right? Like, then
it's possible.
or
Wanna
I
get
don't
some-
know,
wanna get
like
some
someone
Slim-
wants to
some
sue
Slim
us,
Jims.
right? Then he owns this property in his own name. Now the property is something he could be sued for, right? If he does something stupid.
Right.
So that's another reason that you use the LLC and you invest together inside the LLC. Now, if you both have your own LLCs that buys into a property, you both need to make sure that you're named on the insurance policy separately as well. Okay. So make sure you've got a good insurance agent who can just double check that for you, and ask your lawyer to double check that too.
All right, that was step 2. All right, step 3 in this process.
Okay, step 3 is about ownership. Now, we've done a whole episode about how to take title on a property, but we want to remind you that if you take tenancy in common when you buy the property, that just means that the deed says that these people own this property, tenancy in common, right? Then that means there is divisible interests in the property.
All right, what do you mean here? Talk to me like I'm a 5th grader.
Okay, that means you own your share. Here's like a lollipop for you. I own my share. There's a lollipop for me. Let's pretend we each have a half of the lollipop.
Okay.
But then I die.
Okay.
Then my half of the lollipop goes to my next of kin, which is my idiot nephew.
Okay.
Okay.
See, that's a problem. So a tenancy in common is a problem because that nephew might be a total moron.
Right. Now, if you're taking title as an LLC, right, this is not that big of a deal because the LLC owns the property and your joint ownership in the LLC, you own the LLC if that person dies. So then you own the property, right? But if for some reason you decide to just take tenancy in common in your own names, then you're in trouble because, again, if I die, now Clayton is an investor in this property with my idiot nephew who wants to sell the property, right? Or who doesn't want to pay his half of insurance or whatever, right?
Or does something stupid like
pretend
robs a
that I
convenience
have an-
store
right.
for Slim Jims and a Big Gulp.
I don't have idiot nephews. My oldest nephew is 7. So, But let's pretend I have a nephew who's the dumbest person in the world.
He's great now at 7, but he could become an idiot.
Who knows, right?
When he's 15, he
Let's
could rob a
pretend
convenience
that
store.
I have like a, I don't know, like really, really dumb nephew, right? This is your worst case scenario, is that Natalie dies and you own this property with someone really undesirable. You don't want that. So you will invest in an LLC. You will make sure that your operating agreement is rock solid. And if for some reason you don't do that, then you don't want a tenancy in common. You want a joint tenancy.
Joint tenancy.
You want to own the property, joint tenancy. That means that if I die, Clayton assumes the whole lollipop. My interest does not pass down my line of kin. It actually just goes to the other person who owns it. That's usually the way it works in a marriage, right? So this house that we're in right now, if you die, I own it. I don't own it with your mother, right? Who's next of kin, or our first son or whatever. I own it. That's just the right of ownership goes to the surviving spouse.
All right. So some great tips. So 3 really important strategies for making sure that you set up your partnerships properly. Because, even I had a difficult not a difficult conversation. I had a conversation with a partner friend of mine recently as we're about to do a big project together. And we're just looking at the right entity to put the partnership in. And we joked, we said, it's just the uncomfortable questions that you should have up front.
Yeah.
What happens if you decide to split and go to Mexico? What happens if you die? These are the uncomfortable things to think about, but you should think about them because very often the inevitable can happen sometimes. Sadly.
But at this level, you really should be letting your lawyers do that.
Right.
I mean, it's fine when it's one single family house, you're just getting started, but this is a big multi, like you need your lawyers.
Or you're going to buy 100 units,
Right.
100 residential properties together, or, then yes, you want to have the proper legal teams putting these things in place.
Because a lot of times how that goes is, hey, I call up Ring, my lawyer. We have a great guy called at York Hallen Goyman out of Utah, and we say, hey, we like this guy. Let's do negotiations with him while we still like him. And that's when you really get your best contracts, while everyone knows that everyone has the same best interest. Because once you need a lawyer, it's too late.
Yeah, absolutely. So check out the other videos and podcasts. We talked about this very issue about how to take title on rental properties that Natalie talked about. But in the meantime, if you're ready to take action and become a real estate investor, download our free cheat sheet. It's right here. You can download it right there in the description. And it shows you how many rental properties it'll take for you to achieve financial freedom. Figure out your expenses and then buy rental properties. It's that simple. So until next time, everyone, go out there, take action, become a real estate investor, because we believe it's the number one way to build wealth as a partnership.
You pause there. Do you really believe it?
Well, I might go rob a convenience store now.
Okay.
We'll see you next time.